today we're going to be in Matthew 24. We're going to be picking up in verse 15. We're going to run only through verse 28. But there's a lot going on here. We've broken out chapter 24 into 3 teachings. This is the second of 3. So last week we talked about the beginning of the end. You remember that last week, the beginning of the end? Wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, all of these labor pains that Jesus was telling his disciples about, right? He was talking about it. Well, now he moves from someday to this is it. Because remember, they had questions. They're like, so what's going to happen, Jesus, before you come back? Remember, that was a real big question. What's going to happen? What you're talking about these things? How do we know when we see them that this is what's going on? So this part of Matthew 24 is not theory. It's not theory, guys. He's telling them, he's prophesying to them. He's not just saying, I think this may happen. It's possible this may happen. He's saying, it's going to happen. He's giving them a heads up. This is a warning from the lips of Jesus Christ himself to his disciples. He's sitting there. Remember this? He's on the Mount of Olives. He's left the temple, never to return there. This is it for him. The temple's done. He's turned his back on the temple and walked out in a way that said, I'm not coming back. This is it. I'm gone. So he leaves. He walks across the Kedron Valley, goes up onto the Mount of Olives, which is about, 100, 150 feet higher than where the Temple Mount sits. So he's looking straight out over it. He's able to see the Temple Mount. And there he sees this massive white stone building, and it looks indestructible. And remember what he told his disciples. There won't be a stone left upon it. And they're like, what are you talking about? Look at that building, Jesus. Are you not looking at the same building I'm looking at? And he says, there's a moment coming. You're going to see something so shocking in that holy place that you will know this is the moment I'm talking about. This is the moment that I'm talking about. Now, before we go any further, I want everyone to understand who Jesus is talking to, because this is important. He's speaking to who? His Jewish disciples, sitting on Jewish soil, and he's talking about a Jewish temple, right? Everything in this section is about the nation of Israel. He's talking to the nation of Israel, the people, the land he's talking about, the prophecies from God he's talking about. And when he says, let those that are in Judea, and we're going to see this in a minute, flee, he's not talking about the Romans or the Athens or the Greeks. He's talking about Jerusalem specifically. He's focused on that. And when he says, pray your flight isn't on the Sabbath, guess what? That's something only the Jews would worry about. I don't worry about the Sabbath. Oh, I can't do anything on the Sabbath. I can't do any work on the Sabbath. That's not a concern of mine. I'm not called to that. And when he quotes Daniel the prophet, every ear there, all the disciples would recognize it's a prophecy about Jerusalem's future. So yes, the audience here is primarily the Israelites, the Jewish people. But because he's talking about these events that are directly concerning them. He's talking about AD 70 when the Romans are going to come in and destroy the temple. He's already talked about that in the first part of 24. But he's also talking about a future tribulation in which evil is going to rise again in this land. Now, you might hear me saying all this, and you go, well, I'm not Jewish. I'm not an Israelite. I don't live in Israel. I'm going to go to sleep. This doesn't pertain to me. But that's not true. Just because he's not speaking to us directly, as far as who he's talking to in this audience, this passage does speak to us, speaks directly to us. Because while these verses point to prophetically to Israel, he's pointing to them, they reveal the heart of God for every believer. They're going to reveal his heart, his mercy and warning, his sovereignty over history, his call for his people to stay awake in a world that we can all attest to is growing darker. Now, this isn't going to be about what's happening in the Middle East. Some pastors will teach a lot on that, what's going on today. It's about what's happening in our hearts. It's about when evil stands somewhere that it's not supposed to stand, right? It's when rebellion occupies what belongs to God. That's just what this is about. So let's walk through this passage, through what he said to Israel, through what the Spirit wants to say to us, the church, today. So look at verses 15 and 16. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Have you ever read that phrase, abomination of desolation, and thought to yourself, what in the world does that mean? I don't walk around using those words. I don't really say abomination that much, and maybe once in a while I might. Desolation, really not a word I use. It's not in my vocabulary. I know what it means, but here we see Jesus is quoting from Daniel, chapter 9, verse 27. Now Daniel saw this future ruler who would desecrate God's temple. He would be stopping the sacrifices, and then on top of stopping the sacrifices, he would set up something detestable in that place. And the Jews, they'd had a taste of this before. This isn't the first time this has happened to their temple. So they would understand this. About 200 years earlier, there was a man, and we talked about him earlier in Scripture, Antiochus Epiphanes. Remember that name? Kind of a strange name, but Antiochus Epiphanes. He marched into Jerusalem. He was very upset with the Israelites. He marched in there. He goes straight into the temple. He sets up a statue of Zeus. That was his god. These guys, these Roman generals, had these gods that they would serve, basically. And Zeus was his. And he set it up right inside the temple. And then to kind of put a cherry on top, he took a pig, an unclean animal in the eyes of the Israelites, and he took it to the altar, and he sacrificed it on their altar, desecrating their altar. This would have broken the people's hearts. The Jewish people would have seen this and been horrified. Like, what is going on? This is the temple, man. What are you doing? But Jesus says, hey, I know this has happened before. That was just a preview. It's going to be worse the next time around. Look, the one thing you got to understand is that he set up a statue of Zeus, right? The next guy is going to call himself God. He's going to do all these things, but he's going to call himself God. The ultimate rebellion. The ultimate rebellion within our hearts is to say that I'm the God of my own life. I am God. I get to make the decisions. I get to choose what happens. I get to choose what I do. I get to choose what I believe. That's the ultimate rebellion. But what does Jesus say here? He says, when you see this happening, does he say, hang out, take some photos, put it on Instagram, and make sure the world knows about it? Is that what he says? No, he says, don't wait. Don't debate. Run. Run. Don't even grab your stuff. Leave your stuff where it sits. It's not that important, because what's about ready to happen is not something you want to be around for. When a moment of judgment like this shows up, and it hits the church, hits the temple there, once the temple's rebuilt, obviously it's going to have to be rebuilt, judgment is right behind it. It is coming. When you see this thing happen, you know bad things are going to happen. But you can feel this compassion that he has. I mean, I can anyway. He's telling them, here's what's going to happen, but I want to give you a warning. I want to tell you, please, when you see these things, get out of here. Run. Run. He's not trying to scare them. He's trying to warn them because he cares about them. You know, when you tell your kid not to go on the street and play in the street, even though all his friends are playing in the street, it's not because you're trying to scare them. You're trying to warn them. Right? I mean, it's a warning. Stay out of the street. The kids are like, man, my parents are downer. My parents, there's no fun. The no fun brigade. It's like, no, I'm not. Look, I just want you to be safe. I want you to be safe. And that's what he's doing here. He loves them enough to tell them the truth about what's coming. The world would tell us that we lie to people about the truth. Just lie to them. Because it's not kind to tell people the truth. And I tell my kids all the time when they ask me things, Dad, can I do this? Dad, can I do that? And I say, look, I know it's going to seem like I'm the anti-fun guy. But I'm telling you these things not because I don't love you. I'm telling you these things because I love you. If I didn't love you, I'd give you no warnings. I'd give you no bumper guards. I'd be like, yeah, just go out there and do whatever. You want to jump your bike off the top of the house? Good idea. You want to ride down the street and dodge in and out of cars? Have fun. I'm like, no, these things will hurt you. They're bad for you. I love you, and because I love you, I'm going to try to put some bumpers on there. I'm going to try to warn you a little bit. God's warnings sometimes feel harsh. I read this and I go, this is feeling kind of harsh. But it's actually his mercy that he's pouring out. It's mercy. Ask yourself, have you learned to take his warnings seriously? Or do you sort of do like I do often? Oh, I hear you, God. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't do that. Because I'm not taking it seriously sometimes, guys. We've got to take them seriously. A lot of times I shrug them off and then it's too late. God will clearly warn me, don't do these things, Mike. And then I'll be like, okay, cool, I appreciate it. Then I go and do them. And then when things go bad, I'm like, God, how come things are going bad? And he's like, I warned you. And I'm like, yeah, you did. You did warn me. And I shrugged them off. Prophecy here isn't about guessing the future. Some people, they read prophecy like, I think this is going to happen. It sounds like this is going to happen. Oh, man, when's it going to come? They spend all this time trying to figure it out. God's just saying, I'm warning you ahead of time so you can prepare your heart for when it actually does happen, you're ready. Don't worry about the actual timing and the date and the minute and the hour and the day. Forget about it. That's not your job to figure out. Your job's to figure out your heart, to square yourself away with God before the time does arise and you go, man, I should have gotten ready. I should have been ready. I wasn't ready. Listen, Jesus is going to move now from, you thought that was intense. Listen to this now. He's going to move on. Because when that abomination appears, the clock starts ticking for them. And survival depends on one thing, whether you trust his word enough to act on it. Do you trust him enough to act on his word? So let's look at what happens here. Let's look at the next few verses. Verse 17, we'll pick back up. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house, and let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days, pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath. You can almost hear his voice breaking as he's talking about this. He's picturing real people, real families, real moms, real farmers, just real people, right? They're living normal lives. And he says, when this happens, when these things happen, don't look back. Don't look back. And if you read that, to me it reminds me of Lot's wife in Genesis 19. Remember, they're leaving. And God says, don't look back. And she says, I'm looking back. I'm going to be obstinate. I'm going to do what you told me not to do. And she turns into a pillar of salt. She doesn't make it out, right? There are moments when hesitation can be deadly. Deadly, guys. When God says go, you go. You don't go, hey, let's talk about it, God. I want to debate this. Let's see what you're thinking. When he says, pray that it doesn't happen in winter on the Sabbath,